Greetings everyone, update 30.7 is live on all platforms for Warframe with the launch of Nidus Prime Access and the Plague Star event. Nidus Prime Access is live, it contains Nidus Prime, the Strun Prime and the Magnus Prime. You can pick those up via the relics on your screen, and if you want the accessories, of course the Prime Access page on the Warframe website will get that to you for real life cash. It includes Infested Orbiter decorations, a Necromech skin, a Prime Sign Dana, the 90-day resource and affinity booster. With the release of Nidus Prime Access, that means Atlas Prime, the Techo Prime and Deathcube Prime have entered the Prime Vault, and therefore their relics have been removed from the drop tables in-game. If you have their relics already in your inventory, you keep them, you just can't farm for any new versions. They have replaced the Arbiters of Hexus Sacrifice of Atlas Prime systems with the Titania Prime helmets, and the Cephalon Suda Sacrifice of Atlas Prime's chassis has been replaced with the Inaros Prime chassis. Lastly, in regards to the Prime Vault, we have Riven disposition changes. Now, I have covered this in its individual video due to its length, and you can click on the annotation on your screen right now, or the link in the description that'll take you to that video if you want to know disposition value changes for your Riven mods. Moving on, Plague Star has returned. It will run up until the 30th of September at 2 PM Eastern Time, and the new reward of the Ghoulsaw and Butcher's Reveille stance are now available through the Plague Star event. You can pick the Ghoulsaw and the Butcher's Revelry stance up from the in-game market for Platinum through the Ghoulsaw Revelry pack, or just by purchasing the Ghoulsaw by itself. Moving on, the Revenant Mephisto skin and collection is available. You can purchase the skin by itself. However, you will have to purchase the collection as it includes the exclusive accessories. DE have made the note that similar to Ember's Paracesis attachments, the Revenant Mephisto skin has a removable sign Dana that can be equipped on either normal Revenant or the Revenant Mephisto skin. This sign Dana is exclusive to Revenant, just as other Deluxe skin attachments are exclusive to them. Please note that the energy beard on the original Revenant helmet gets removed when the Mephisto sign Dana is equipped due to excessive clipping. Now, included in that Revenant Deluxe collection is the two-handed Nakana skin. You also get the Revenant Mephisto Operator collection that includes accessories for your operator. With a note from DE that these are separate market collections as not to spoil things for those who want the Mephisto skin who have not yet completed the War Within or Second Dream. Moving on, we have Yareli changes. DE have said the following. Yareli improvements are here, Tenno. We have two areas that are being buffed, stats and utility. While many Tenno have hoped for more stat buffs, which we have here, the utility buffs are really something to behold for the usability of presumably of Marulna. We are introducing a foundational change to her movement, Marulna dashing, that being your tap roll button to dash. This can be executed in any direction and is effectively a new way to close gaps or quickly retreat, and alter the direction of Yareli aboard Marulna. This also enhances the way you can traverse vertically with responsive directional input while in the air. What you see in the GIF, which is up on your screen, is a vertical traversal that's currently tough to do with Yareli. However, with this update, the forward dash, the momentum movement, now allows for directional maneuvering. We then see Yareli dash both forward and back, showing how you can certainly take advantage of the new movement. They've also made changes to the general Marulna movement by allowing for shorter jumps and reducing the overall jump charge time. As for those stat changes that they mentioned, Sea Snares, they've increased the seek speed by about 60% and slightly increased the bubble visibility to better register your cast. Aqua Blades increased the range by just about 25% and increased damage and duration by 50%. Lastly, Riptide. Bigger is better. The bigger we rip, the more enemies, the better scaling, and so on. Increase the radius by 25%. For Yareli specific fixes, DE have fixed the financial stress debuff not being removed after Yareli scores in the index while riding Marulna, an inability to use a cipher while riding Marulna, Yareli's passive bonus to the pistol critical chance not applying to clients, shared affinity not being attributed to player weapons while riding Marulna as Yareli, numerous AoE enemy attacks not affecting Yareli while riding Marulna, the missing weapon rank UI when switching to Marulna with your primary weapon equipped, picking up rifle ammo for an empty primary while riding Marulna equipping said primary weapon, mission. They fixed the missing end of mission stats if the enemies are killed with Yareli's abilities while riding Maruna, an issue where Yareli players boarding Maruna would have their flashlight color permanently adopt Yareli's first energy color. Lastly, they fixed a script error that occurs when completing a mastery rank test while riding Yareli's Maruna. Corrupted Holokey changes. In the final Railjack showdown node for a Sister of Parvos, each sister will give each squad member one corrupted Holokey at the end of mission, whether you vanquish or convert them. This means a squad of 4 can leave with 4 corrupted Holokeys, each on showdown mission completion. They've also said that corrupted Holokey drop amounts have been increased in Void Storms, with Void Storms in the Veil Proxima now dropping 10, previously it was 6, to make the hardest content the most rewarding. The rest of the regions have had their amounts increased by 1. As for the game additions, they have added the Paracesis Sheath Orbiter decoration. This is inspired by the conversation had with its original creator during TennoCon's 2021 art panel. You can purchase it from Cephalon Smaris after completing the Chimera Prologue quest. For Kuva Lich and Sister of Parvos changes and fixes, DE have reduced the time between Grineer Kuva Thrall spawns so that the time to get all 10 to spawn is more in line with the time it takes to get all 3 Corpus Hounds to spawn. They made more improvements to the Kuva Lich and Sister of Parvos showdown cinematic, with added music befitting a showdown. They fixed the cinematic being silent, the ability to manipulate the camera during the cinematic, and the animation popping during the cinematic. They've also changed the sister candidate weapon icon to be the sister icon instead of the treasurer Granum crown icon. They fixed a progression stopper in the sister showdown fight due to the sister's hound not spawning if the host player died and went AFK after entering the capital ship, an issue where a Kuva Lich with the ensnare ability could potentially prevent the context action for execution from appearing if the ability was cast prior to being weakened. They fixed not receiving the Sisterhood sigil after converting or the Sisterhood emblem after vanquishing a Sister of Parvos. Upon login, those missing these respective sigils and emblems will receive them. They fixed Rhino's Stomp, perpetually stunning both Kuva Liches and Sister of Parvos, the Kuva Lich and Sister Vanquish animation not playing correctly, where it would turn the Lich and Sister invisible or fall through the floor during the animation. They fixed missing client Parazon Mercy animations on Grineer Thralls, an issue where fusing 2 particularly ranked Kuva or Tenant weapons together appeared to increase the rank of your weapon, with a note that this was a UI display only, as a Valence fusion does not increase a weapon rank. Now the weapon rank does not increase from fusion, and the UI does not incorrectly show that it has. They've also fixed an issue in the crew command where Liches would appear as Grineer Heavy Gunners in the Railjack UI, and now shows the Kuva Lich or Sister of Parvos badge icons where it previously showed Grineer Heavy Gunners to represent the crew member. They fixed unlocalized Kuva Lich inbox messages, and lastly Kuva Lich names appearing as part of the ephemera name in the Kuva Lich inbox messages. DE have also made customization changes for select attachments, that being the none option. They have said, for a long time now, we've had the precedent with a handful of Warframe skins where the none option for attachments and sometimes signed donors was removed if certain skins, primes, etc. were equipped. This applied to Warframes such as Ember Prime, the Pyraxis skin, Frost, Mag Prime, Oberon, Volt, and more. We now usher in a new none era. All Warframes and Warframe skins that previously did not have the none option will now have a none attachment or signed donor option, giving you even more customization flexibility. This means you can remove details such as any attachments on the Ember Pyraxis, Mag Prime, and the list goes on. In addition, Banshee, Frost, and Oberon's default shoulder armor can now be equipped on Prime versions of the Warframes. This also fixes a long-standing bug where a Warframe that has no default shoulder attachments, let's say Excalibur, and had nothing equipped there, if you clicked on left arm, then it would auto-select the first shoulder armor in your own list. Moving on, we have the overall game changes with update 30.7. The Hemocyte is now immune to looting abilities that often didn't fully work due to how quickly the body despawns. That being Hydrate's Tentacle Swarm with Pilfering Swarm, Necrosis Desecrate, and more. DE said the following. With the rerun of Plaguestar, we are adding Nidus Prime's relics as in-world drops from the Hemocyte. This change was brought forth with this in mind, and the acquisition rate of this new Prime that could be influenced with loot abilities, which is not a precedent we wish to set. With up to 4 Hemocytes that can spawn in the final stage, it felt especially important to make this change. Moving on, the Ambassador component blueprints have a chance to drop from the Aurochs Atlock Rachnoids. The main blueprint can now be attained as a Rotation C reward from any Corpus Railjack survival mission, with DE noting, after engaging with community feedback, we noticed that obtaining the Ambassador Pass was a tough combination of playing the same mission in 4 different locations with some difficult RNG. The Ambassador components have also been moved to an enemy that was without a drop table. Every Aurochs Atlock Rachnoid has a 15% chance to drop any component blueprints for the Ambassador. Also, enemies typically only drop weapon blueprints or component blueprints, which is why the Ambassador components were given individual blueprints. Moving on, DE have tweaked Zephyr's Airburst Pull Vacuum to lift enemies up a bit off the ground so they aren't dragging their butts, plus updated the effects to go along with it. With the note that Zephyr's Airburst was intended to pull enemies in like a vortex for a short duration, but was spawning exactly where the projectile hit, resulting in being inside the floor. We fixed it by making the vortex spawn a bit above the floor, and in the process gave it an effects pass to communicate better what was happening. DE added the missing requirements context information to Ergo Glass Shop in the relay, and they made the following changes to the Saxum mod set. The cooldown will now appear in the HUD, they've removed fall-off damage and increased the range to 4, 8, and 12 meters. They increased the knockback to enemies caught closer to the impact while heavily staggering enemies within range, but further away from the explosion. With a note that this also fixes the issue with the Saxum mod set bonus not matching the in-game description, that being lifted enemies explode on death and deal up to 30% of their maximum health as impact damage. DE have reduced the Riven challenge condition for kill X enemies with headshots from at least 100 meters away to 75 meters. They've changed the sorting of items on the end of mission screen to better reflect importance, including Steel Essence, Riven Slivers, Granum Crowns, Built Former, Orokin Cells, Corrupted Holokeys, Built Prime Parts, War Hilt, the Requiem Ultimatums, Exilus Adapters, Drop Chance Boosters, Scintillants, and Built Railjack components. Harrow's Neuroptic blueprints can now be obtained from the first vault in Pargo and as a Rotation C reward from Tavuni on the Kuva Fortress. The mod and relic rewards have been swapped on Pago and drop rates increased slightly. Harrow's system blueprints drop rates on defection missions have also been increased slightly and added them as a Rotation C reward from Tavuni on the Kuva Fortress. With a note that in response to community feedback on farming for Harrow, we revisited the process for obtaining his components. We are making it easier to obtain Harrow Neuroptic blueprints and the Harrow system blueprints from the locations outlined above. They've also removed Intensify from the mid-tier defection rewards, with a note that we found that Intensify was an unnecessary addition to defection rewards, and therefore skewed the chances of receiving other rewards, hence its removal. Octavia's Manticord option has been moved into the top arsenal menu under the Parazon option, with a note that the Manticord is a very important piece of equipment for Octavia's abilities. Having it buried and not as readily accessible was not ideal considering that it is key to her performance. It is now much easier to find it and create a tune of destruction. They've added a scroll bar to the index results screen. Syndicate Medallion trade-in screens have been given the UI theme treatment. DE have added the insufficient funds context information to the Syndicate offerings confirmed purchase panel. They've improved the NPC zipline usage in the Gas City tile set, with a note that their parkour skills were just a bit too weak. A warning for unowned landing craft skins will now appear when attempting to purchase a skin for a landing craft type they do not own. They've increased the visibility of control panels for extendable bridges in some major corridors in the Corpus Gas City tile set. They've changed the underlying code of the UI for future proofing, but you shouldn't notice anything just yet. If you do come across anything janky, let DE know. They've adjusted Chroma's Elemental Ward stat display to be more accurate, with a note that uses % display for health, shield, armor, reload, holster buffs. They've improved the tent textures in the Plains of Eidolon. They've adjusted the Brachioolist ragdoll animation to make it more natural looking, updated the Foundry preview images for the Scorched Beacon and Chroma Mark blueprints for the new Strange Quest, which were appearing as low-resolution images. They changed the timing of the Sentient Damage Pulse and Weapon Reattach to occur at a specific time within the animation rather than at the end, with a note that previously destroying both arms on sentients would cause them to drop weapons. Sentients no longer drop anything when arms are destroyed, but they will instead regenerate them. This regeneration causes a damage pulse that has been modified to occur during the animation rather than at the end. DE have reduced the damage and overall range of the Ortholist Sentient's long-range barrage cluster projectiles. Revenant's Dance Macabre ability now deals finisher damage against inanimate objects instead of adopting a damage type based on the target. With a note, it still does adaptive damage and applies adaptive status effects against enemies. Prior to this change, Dance Macabre was allowing Revenant to solve operator-required puzzles, which is clearly not intended. They removed the ability to collect duplicate ephemeras, with a note that ephemeras now abide by the one per person rule that other cosmetic items follow, thus clearing out the unnecessary inventory clutter. They also said a script will run upon first logging in after updating the game to remove existing duplicates. Updates have come to K-Drive and Marulina riding so that the rider's aim endpoint matches the vehicle's aim endpoint, with a note that this addresses cases of moving in unintended directions. They've updated the Dojo Room HUD title to have more of a Vitruvian theme, updated the menu UI in the personal quarters to reflect a Vitruvian theme, that being the fish tank, articular, and more. They've added Orokin ciphers and Omega isotopes as a feeding option to the helmet, which will grant bile. They've added cryptographic alloy as a fitting option to helmet, which will grant synthetics. The converted adversaries menu will now auto-open when starting a trade in the Crimson Branch instead of having to click through the tabs. Upon logging in, those that receive the unintended shotgun riven mod for kick guns via the guides of the Lotus Alert will have their riven corrected to a proper pistol kick gun riven mod, with a note that this does not change the challenge or any cycling you have already done. They reworded the Viral Quills description to decrease its unnecessary length. They reworded the Vault Ludo Nightwave Act to clarify that it's for the Dragon Key Vaults, not the Isolation Vaults. Players under Mastery Rank 2 will no longer see the update history messages upon login, as this information may be overwhelming as they begin their Warframe journey. They tweak the compression of cursors so they look better at mid sizes, although this unfortunately makes them not as sharp when scaled to max. Lastly, they made a few changes to the Helmet 15th Metamorphosis Golden Instinct Void Spark. They doubled the Void Spark's lifespan, increased the Void Spark's visibility, and increased the start time of Golden Instinct. Moving on, we have optimizations for update 30.7. DE made systemic micro-optimizations to the engine and level loading, optimized out some hitches when using DirectX 12, made some micro-optimizations to DirectX 12's memory footprint, micro-optimizations to the game startup when running DirectX 12, optimized out many small hitches when using DirectX 12. They fixed a bug that would cause certain shadows to malfunction in DirectX 12 on PC, systemic micro-optimizations to DirectX 11 rendering, a micro-optimization to level loading and streaming, a micro-optimization to UI rendering, micro-optimization to depth of field rendering, and micro-optimizations to the fog rendering. They also made systemic micro-optimizations to the memory footprint, systemic micro-optimizations to shadow rendering on all platforms, micro-optimizations to the particle system rendering, micro-optimizations to rendering on all platforms, systemic micro-optimizations for all platforms, and they fixed inconsequential graphical inconsistency that may have caused a few micro stutters on DirectX 12. There's a long list, but let's get to it. DE made the following fixes, with update 30.7, Nidus Prime, and Plague Star's return. DE fixed a crash that could occur when transferring from Excalibur Umbra to a Necromech, a crash that could occur if a client player aborted after a host migration in a defense mission, a crash when attempting to Valence Fusion a Talon armament, Ember's Immolation HUD meter not functioning after dying and reviving until you operate a transference, replacing a Prime blueprint on the trading screen not always updating the ducat value correctly, the ability to ride on top of the Plague Star infested boil with K-drives and other similar vehicles, which resulted in taking no damage. They fixed the UI not updating when attempting to invigorate Excalibur Umbra, which then resulted in a script error, incorrect animal subspecies appearing in the Cambion Drift if you used a pheromone, Sprag missing her jetpack animation movesets, the unrepaired scrap version of an armament also showing as equipped in the list for the same slot, Anaris's Scarab Swarm HUD still showing up after switching with Warframes in the simulacrum, the Dragon Key UI and HUD not updating after after swapping them in your gear in the simulacrum, the Eros Wings ephemera clipping with certain parts of the escape menu, a few quest prerequisite texts missing the respective location, background of the clan hierarchy screen being shrunk when using menu scale, the dojo room selection sometimes not having some rooms available for selection, the dojo room message and name font being very dark, the tab menu and end of mission screen in the Conclave Annihilation game mode not displaying player names of their scores, there being Oro kills and deaths, the Wave Rider comic showing duplicate challenges after rereading pages. They fixed multiple issues with the Saxon mod set, that being the lifted enemies explode on death effect not working when the full set is equipped, non-melee attacks to proc the effect from triggering on non-lifted enemies. They fixed the damage type to correctly deal impact damage, a buff icon appearing in the HUD on activation, and miscellaneous fixes for proc inconsistencies and stacking issues with other mods. They fixed the Helminth Crewbrow puppy appearing as a default crewbrow and not a Helminth variant, the total number of own decorations not including the amount placed on the orbiter, rounding errors for the Helminth invigoration cost that could prevent an account from invigorating in rare circumstances, Grineer Scorpions not doing their full melee combo, the Necromech slot pricing in the Foundry appearing differently than it does in the in-game market, Oberon Smite visual effect colors not reflecting the player's custom color choice, the end of mission screen in the Railjack not displaying the correct mission time, they fixed not being able to pause during a Lunaro match, textures on Mirage breaking in the simulacrum while changing to a deluxe skin after using Mirage's Eclipse. They fixed the Tenant Envoy's guided rockets being unable to pass through Volt's shield and Garrett's Vitrify, Railjack crew pilots searching for objectives multiple times per second causing some pretty dizzy passengers, the Transmission color palette and Lisette Atharia skin not rewarding Nora's choice creds from duplicate protection, clip issues with the Zundi pistol skin when using the Mesa idle animation, the landing craft exit looking dark when evacuating during Corpus outpost missions, the waveform ephemera incorrectly appearing behind your Warframe in the arsenal, incorrect spacing in Ortis's subtitles during the Octavia Anthem quest, elite crew members with the heal all teammates for 1000 health when this crew member drops below 30% trait, not triggering their ability when conditions are met, an issue with bonus affinity not being granted after a successful Railjack defense mission, AI fighters in Railjack losing focus on the player in certain situations and flying outside the detection range of the player. They fixed a script error related to being the operator in the Cetus tunnel, a hole in the Grineer settlement tile set, a bug that would cause the Railjack to become stuck in an ice mine while in the Neptune Proxima, a script error related to Protea getting on a K drive, an issue where the mods section would not load sometimes when configuring the Railjack Plexus from the Drydock console, an issue where Titania's Razor Wing was unable to deal damage to nullifier type Corpus capture targets, an issue with the Void Storm survival missions sometimes not rewarding Void Traces when unlocking 2 or more relics, an issue where the floor in Cetus would disappear when viewed from a large distance, an issue where the auto swap on empty function was not swapping weapons for clients, an issue with a misaligned glass window plane in the Corpus Gas City tile set, an issue where the pedestal for the cyst of regressed Helminth charges would retract into the floor when opening and closing the arsenal. They fixed Titania being able to get out of bounds with entering and exiting Razorwing, an issue where some color customization code intended for Railjack's emplacements would cause a player's Warframe to appear in its default skin and color scheme. They fixed an issue where affinity was not retained after completing a mission in the Plains Vitalon, returning to Cetus and then going on a mission again, an issue where clients would get disconnected when entering the arsenal in the simulacrum while having the same Warframe as the host, an issue where the Tenant Agendus's hammer was not being held properly in a Warframe's hand if it was the only weapon equipped, Titania being unable to descend while in Razorwing form after being propelled by the geyser plants in Deimos. They fixed an issue where certain Warframe animations would prevent an enemy from being susceptible to Parazon finishes, a script error related to loading Railjack crew members when a client tries to join a session, a script error related to Rhino's iron skin, and they have made the following fixes for Plaguestar. An issue where the Plaguestar bounty drone would automatically start without being hacked once the player was in proximity, and an issue where Nakak was talking to herself silently after you looked at the offerings page. They fixed a script error related to Revenant's abilities, an issue with dual wielding a glaive and pistol as Titania before activating Razorwing enabling permanent slide attacks when using quick melee, an inability to use Stance Former or Umbra Former on the Dark Split Sword, an issue where if a player completed a mission and and then waited in their orbiter for the next mission, then the time spent waiting was counted into the mission time. A script error related to Mace's shooting gallery, an issue where a mid-mission host migration on exterminate missions allowed clients to progress the kill counts while waiting for a new host. They fixed Darjan pilots in the simulacrum having randomized levels once they drop from their destroyed Tusk Darjans, an issue with an infinite loading screen for hosts leaving railjack defense missions, the electricity status effects from the Synergized Prospectus Hound preset mod arcing to players close to the enemy targeted and dealing friendly fire damage. They fixed an issue where, while completing Void Storm missions, collecting 10 Void Traces while in the Necromech without entering your Warframe would not open the Relic. An issue where playing as Korra in the Mastery Rank 13 test will result in no enemy spawning. The previous power binding option in Railjack controls appearing as switch secondary, Nezha's Divine Spear deactivation sounds triggering on enemy deaths, the Aurochs Rachnoids leaving behind an invisible blockage on death, being able to equip Umbra Former to the Sister of Parvos Hound weapons, with a note that they can't equip Umbra mods, so this was just a trap for the unwary. They fixed being unable to target Darjan pilots that have fallen out of Darjan, an issue with Arcwing where if you bullet jump and equip the Arcwing mid-air, then you would constantly float up, a harmless script error that would occur when directly loading into the Orvalis, an issue where if you bullet jump with Revenant and then cast Dance Macabre, his head would appear broken, an issue where you could not select a Warframe at the start of the game. They fixed performance issues when using Thermal Thunder as Titania after casting Razorwing as the host. They fixed an issue where, when playing an index mission and using Transference, would allow the Warframe to regain maximum shields without being affected by the financial stress debuff. They fixed an issue with a tooltip not having the appropriate offset during mission selection, Grineer cruise ship gunner HUD reticles appearing stretched, wonky spawn points for certain loot containers in the Orokin Tower tile set, versus being hackable before disabling them, an issue where using Void Mode to sneak past sentient enemies in Octavia's Anthem would prevent Ortis' transmissions from triggering and stopping progress, animals spawning underground in the Plains of Eidolon caves, Darjan pilots spawning in caves, landing craft skins applying to crafts across the board after customizing in the appearance options, creating for some very odd visual results. They fixed hangar doors in the Grineer Galleon tile set, sometimes missing collisions, an issue where the Railjack's left gun is partially or completely invisible when at the dry dock, an issue with silencing mods not reducing some sounds properly, an issue with the UI where the view mission progress menu and the end of mission results menu displayed incorrect affinity values if a weapon gained multiple ranks in a mission. They fixed visual effect performance issues that occurred upon dying, a client bug causing the moving laser wall to stutter irregularly inside the Corpus ship Vault E, unhelpful waypoints attaching themselves to consoles that are environment only and not interactable in the Orvalis Bounty Spy missions. They fixed players clipping through Rampart when disembarking when they first entered, regardless of player rotation, a pop in the heavy blade animation loop that would occur in the left hand. They fix UI locking in place while the camera relocates after dying in the Simulacrum Arsenal mod window. Lavos and Hildren being able to roll energy-based invigorations, that being energy max plus 200% and energy regen plus 2, as the Warframes do not use energy. Tanukai longsword skin clipping into the ground while idling. They fix the missing lighter on a player when in higher areas around the Clan Dojo Hall. They fix the orbital lights behind the codex not changing to the desired color. An inability to move the Call of the Tempestari M3 mission after opening the main menu after completing the Cold Below section. Enemies not spawning in Grineer C-Lab defense missions. Reload speed buffs affecting the Shiddu's ammo regeneration delay, with a note that the battery cannot begin regenerating if the weapon is in between shots. They fixed a spot load when an on-call crew member is deployed with a kit gun equipped, a spot load when a player joins your orbiter, the Tenant Diplos not unlocking the meeting adjourned achievement, the Kill It With Fire achievement not applying to the Deimos Genetrix. They fixed the ability to chat link and apply a mod config with a negative capacity, the Ride the Wave poster icon texture looking stretched, the Mastery Rank Up UI mentioning the daily focus limit before players have unlocked focus, friends list showing a white box for the legendary legendary icon if you haven't already witnessed it, the Darjan pilot not being paused in the simulacrum when the pause AI is enabled and the pilot has been removed from the Darjan. They fixed the chat header icons becoming stuck on screen, a flickering light during the War Within quest, in-game challenge progress pop-ups appearing when notifications are disabled, issues where regressing the age of a pet would not unequip its armor, an issue where the Parazon marker would appear above the converted Corpus Lich's or Sister of Parvos head when selecting from the crew railjack page, the issue where the Buzzlocks fire homing would cause no damage, a visual issue with the Zundai pistol skin, a UI issue with the railjack crew command where players could be promoted to assign role to converted Kuva Lich's and Sister of Parvos despite them being limited to the defender role. They fixed an issue where the railjack skills bar from the crew page in the dry dock was not updating after the crew is swapped, an issue with the flashlight not working as intended when on vehicles such as K-drives, an issue with the snow shader losing accuracy in specific areas of a level, an issue where the effects of energy of the tenant agendas was not affected by the custom color chosen, an issue related to the Mastery Rank 24 test. This test provides you a non-upgraded default amp and removes any arcanes. If the player died and respawned, they would have their personal upgraded amp and any arcanes equipped available to use in the test, making the test easier than intended. Respawning no longer brings the player's amp and arcanes into the test. It's only been like that for a couple of years. Good to see it's fixed. DE fixed an issue where the upper body animations and finisher animations blended into each other, creating undesired visuals, an issue where assigning a Lich to on-call would overwrite a Lich's crewmate displayed stats. Lich's crewmate stats now stay consistent. A puzzle on Lewis spy missions, that being Pavlov, was unintentionally unsolvable. They fixed an issue with trees clipping at a long distance in the plains of Eidolon, a particle system issue that caused some elements of the Apostasy prologue to turn bright red. They fixed a look-linked Kavat appearing to have two tails, the Cedo, Cyanex, and Icarius causing a parried reaction versus certain enemies, the Night Hunter Syndana's wings not retracting for client players, an inability to view the large version of an owned glyph, the Speak to Konzu objective text when first entering Cetus not being capitalized. They fixed a script error when casting Bone Widow's Shield Maiden ability, when casting Rhino's Raw ability, when casting Korra's Strangle Dome. Fixed an inability to chat link Primed Magazine Warp, and an inability to trade Primed Magazine Warp. They fixed the mission extraction waypoint sometimes turning red in exterminate missions, Nightwave Axe being stuck on the screen forever if you change settings. They fixed Narumod's executing dash not opening enemies to finishes, and lastly, for update 30.7 Nidus Prime and the Plague Star rerun, DE fixed the skirt on the Ivara Grak skin clipping through Ivara Prime's bottom. Anyway, that is update 30.7's patch notes all in one video. I will be releasing individual videos for certain information that I deem important. So if you want certain videos that could help other people when it comes to some of the changes and fixes and whatnot shared in this video, let me know in the comment section. But regardless, that's 45 minutes of straight recording. Time to edit it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.